Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call us to order so that we can get started and hopefully get everyone through in a reasonable time. I'm going to declare that we have a quorum present of 7 members. That moves us to item C, presentation regarding secondary attendance boundary adjustment options. Dr. Ely.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, members of the board. We have a brief presentation this evening from Mike Martindale, Deputy Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer, just kind of talk a little bit about where we are in the process. And then after that brief presentation, we'll throw it open for public comments for the citizens. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Dr. Ely, Mr. Harris, board members. Brief, 5 to 7 minutes. Want to kind of capture our workshop from last week real quickly just to frame up the evening. So again, what brought us here this evening? Well, a conversation again started in December as a part of FC Local, which required an annual enrollment review and report. A part of that December meeting was a sharing of our student enrollment projection data from Templeton Demographics. And what we did was take FC Local, which addresses facility utilization and comparability, and apply that to those projected numbers. When we did so, of course, you can see the green signifies that Consolidated is projected to be under 85% of its capacity through the 2021 school year, and College Station High School exceeding 110% capacity beginning fall of 2019. And again, none of this information is new to you. We're just revisiting this real quickly prior to our comments. Also, we took a look at our comparability, which has the two high schools from the fall October PEIMS data at a difference of 14.33%, looking for less than 12% as per FC Local. That sent us into what we're in the midst of now, our boundary adjustment process for the high school. And again, FC Local leads us through this process. It says administration should develop multiple new attendance boundary options, present these to the board along with information explaining how the options were developed. That was a part of our meeting last week on the 28th. Also, after receiving the options, the board will analyze and consider the options, and once all analysis has been completed, the board adopt the final boundaries. Of course, during this process, the board shall receive input from the public through at least one community forum, also gather feedback from the public through email, and of course, we're having our gathered here this evening for our community forum. Again, the objective of this process was to improve our comparability between our two high schools, as well as our facility utilization to reduce overcrowding at College Station High School and increase use of our available space at Consolidated. We presented the board with 4 different options or starting points. Here's option 1. I've obviously pointed out the adjustments to current zone proposed in option 1 in the northern part of the district to expand College Station High School zone in the northern end over to Anderson Street, which extends from George Bush to 2818. And we had adjustments to our east and west boundaries in the southern end, moving our boundaries south and east to ING, South Allen, and Welborn Road, as well as moving our boundary west from 6th to Arrington Road to include Indian Lakes. That was option 1. And again, I know I'm going quickly. All of this information is available and has been on our website for the public to review. Option 2A, same adjustment in north zone to College Station High School. And then we had the adjustment in the southeastern part of the zone, moving our boundary again west to Arrington Road, and some adjustment in the middle of the district as well in this particular option, moving the boundary south from Graham to Eagle between Highway 6 and Fitch. Option 2B, same adjustment in the northern part of the district. This one adjusted the southwestern corner of the district, moving the boundary south and east to IGN, Straub, and Welborn Road, and also an adjustment in the interior or the middle part of the district, moving the boundary south to include Dove Crossing, Bridlegate, and Springbrook. And our last option, option 3 that we shared last week and has been available for community review. Again, the adjustment up north. However, this was Anderson Street from George Bush to Southwest Parkway, so it didn't go as far south as the previous examples. We moved our boundary south and east to IGN and Copy Bridge Road, and also adjusting our boundary south to include Dove Crossing, Bridal Gate, Springbrook, the eastern portion of Shenandoah Spring Creek developments, Tower Point, South Oaks, and areas between Arrington Road and Greens Prairie Road. Of course, all the data associated with those various options, again, we shared last week and are also available on our website for the community. As I've mentioned several times, all this information will be found on our website, High School Boundary Adjustment 2018, and each of our workshops and public forums are video and will be posted accordingly by the end of the following day. Just to capture our remaining scheduled workshops at this time, of course, our Boundary Adjustment Public Forum this evening. We are scheduled to come together and workshop Wednesday at 3 o'clock here in the boardroom, as well as next Monday, April the 9th at 5. And, of course, community can provide feedback in any time using feedback@csisd.org, and that goes directly to our board members. I think that was 4 minutes and 52 seconds, Dr. Ely. 6. Oh, okay, my apologies.
Are we ready? Okay, item D. It is an open forum to receive input related to the boundary adjustment recommendations regarding secondary attendance zones and their implementation. Now, during this time, public comments are welcome. The board is assembled only to gather information. The board will listen, but the Open Meetings Act prevents us from responding to speakers. Please complete the note card and give it to the executive assistant. So if you want to talk, be sure to grab one of the cards and fill it out and turn it in. Each person has one opportunity at the microphone, regardless of minutes used. Unused minutes may not be accrued by another speaker. The executive assistant will time the comments and alert the president when time is expired. The board will not allow derogatory comments. In addition, when you start your remarks, please state your name and address and the neighborhood in which you reside for us. Do we have cards? Okay, our first speaker, Amanda Childress.
Good evening. Let me start by saying that I can't imagine what your drive home after a meeting like this must be like. I guess I could compare it to driving home from Fort Worth Super Regional after watching Game 3 go into 16 innings, only to lose by 1 run because of a throwing error and not advancing to the College World Series. You've worked hard. You want to please a lot of people. There is a lot on the line. You are exhausted. And regardless of the outcome, someone will still post about you on a message board. So please know that the hard task you have of rezoning in a wonderful community like ours with 2 equally outstanding high schools is not lost on our family, and we appreciate your time, service, and dedication to the students in this district. I'd like to speak specifically to the issue of grandfathering the current 8th graders. I know you have many important things to look at and weigh when considering which of the 4 options presented to go with. It is clear you have to look at comparability percentages, growth trajectories, transportation, and other important issues. Please do not overlook or dismiss the topic of grandfathering. When someone gets accepted to Texas A&M, they go to fish camp, register for classes, start making living arrangements, and planning for their future. They haven't stepped foot on campus or attended the first class yet, but these individuals consider themselves a fighting Texas Aggie. The same is true for the current 8th graders. They haven't stepped foot in their respective classes, but they already consider themselves a Cougar or a Tiger. They've toured their schools, met with counselors, filled out their 4-year plans. Some have tried out for cheer and dance teams. Others are making plans to run for student council, and the list goes on. As a board, that is considering voting on drug testing students, it is obvious that you acknowledge the temptations and pressures that our young students face today. To say that students are resilient and will make new friends is not entirely true. At what is almost the end of their 8th grade year, students have established their core group of friends, and for many, this is vital to their success both in the classroom and socially. The same goes for the parents of these students. Parents within these friend groups have a bond and network as well. They rely on each other to stay informed about things that are taking place and things to be aware of, etc. In an attempt to remove the emotional side out of things, I am simply asking you to look at the bigger numbers you've been given and to consider how little of an impact taking the current 8th graders out of those numbers could have. I've seen the overall numbers, and I agree there is a need to alleviate the overcrowding at CSHS and remedy the undercapacity numbers at A&M Consolidated. I truly believe that objective can be met while still considering the positive impact that not grandfathering or, you know what I'm saying, the current 8th graders would have on many of these students. I know your mission statement includes preparing students for the challenges of life. However, this is an unfair challenge to throw their way at such a crucial time in their life, the beginning of high school. Thank you for your time and consideration, and again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. The next speaker is Fred Bayless.
Hello, how are y'all tonight? I'm Fred Bayless, 7610 River Ridge. I live in River Place subdivision. I've lived there for about 18 years, and the first thing I want to say is I know this job is really hard, but as I go through my talk, my theme is going to be to try to make a plan that will hold us much longer. For my children, maybe I have too many children, and that's the reason I've been subjected to it so many times, but we've been moved elementary schools 5 times, junior high twice, and high school, this will be a 2nd time. With my 3rd and 4th children, they were looking forward to going to high school together, but the new school came in, and we obliged and did split them for 2 years, 2 years at Consolidated and 2 years, they were in high school together at 2 different high schools for 2 years. And we're happy where we are. We would have been happy there. I don't want the children to have to experience moving back again. So I've talked to numerous parents, numerous teachers, and I've yet to hear anybody complain about the overcrowding yet at College Station High School. The students seem happy, the parents seem happy, and I have not heard any complaints from any of them, in fact. What they complain about is the disruption that this is causing in their life. And so one thing I want to take a look at, I know there's a current underutilization at Consolidated, but I was wondering if all of the subdivisions in Consolidated have been taken into account. Lakeway Reserve by Scott and White, they filed the preliminary plat for 605 lots by one of our best developers in town, Wallace Phillips. He will develop that out. There will be lots of kids there. Wallace Phillips is also doing Southern Point out at the racetrack, and he's already submitted his final plat for Phase 1, and this subdivision could be 1,400 to 2,000 houses. Mission Ranch already has their roads going at the corner of IGN and Rock Prairie. That's over 300 lots. That's also in Consolidated. Crossing of Lick Creek is selling out Phase 2, and they've already started the platting process for Phase 3. That will be yet more houses. Pebble Creek just rezoned several hundred acres residential behind the golf course. Obviously, that will be many, many, many houses. Williams Creek has already put across 40. They've already done 29 lots and are working on 25 more. Tony Jones has the corner of Bird Pond Road and Rock Prairie. Been waiting for the sewer line to get there, and that has made it there through Lakeway Reserve. That will be 30 lots in Phase 1 and 30 lots in Phase 2. That is a lot of lots. What will happen if in 2 or 3, 4 years as these houses start to develop, will Consolidated be overcrowded, and then some of the people who got moved from Indian Lakes or Saddle Creek or River Place, will they get put back in College Station High School? There is obviously more growth to the south. there will continue to be growth there. But there's tons of growth in the consolidated district. I would respectfully request, I don't even know if it's possible, but can we consider tabling this for a year or 2 years? Let's see where it shakes out. Because there's a lot of people here because they're upset about it. They're not upset about their classroom experience at the moment. So is there any way to table it? Let's see how these shake out. And if you do have to do something to do some balancing, can it be minor and not be as far-reaching out into the southern portions of the town? A lot of families, yes, I developed Saddle Creek. It's all sold out now, so I don't have any, monetary interest there, but I care about the people here. They chose to buy out there because finally there's an elementary school, an intermediate school, a junior high, and a high school in close proximity to where they chose to live. And there's going to need to be growth in the schools. Why not start, table this for a year or two, start the bond election, and get College Station High School larger, and it can grow into 6A, and Consolidated will eventually be there as well. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, our next speaker is Steve Ginn.
Good evening. I'm concerned with living half a mile from CSHS.
Would you please state your name?
I'm sorry, Steve Ginn, 1405 Southern Plantation in Shenandoah. I'm concerned with living half a mile from College Station High, but with the third plan, my son will go to Consol. There will be no way for him to bike or walk. It will put a burden on myself or my wife, or he will have to ride the bus to get to and from school. It doesn't look like in any of the planning that a core area for each school was taken and then the zones adjusted outside of that core area. It looks like everything taken from Indian Lakes from the south side would go to CSHS, or from the far southwest side of the district, or you have it flipped one or the other. If both of those go to CSHS, then our section of Shenandoah gets cut out and has to go to Consol. It doesn't make a lot of sense for that. I don't know how many walkers we have. There are quite a few that I see in the mornings and afternoons. And these kids are now going to have to, the upcoming kids are going to have transportation to Consol. I hope you understand where I'm coming from there. Looking at your ED percentages, they start at 4 on the first plan, and from there they go up to 6.4% difference on the third plan. Seems like you would want that to be as low as possible, where I believe you showed 14.5% earlier. I understand that the utilization needs to be as close as possible at both schools. We don't need wasted space that we're paying for as taxpayers. But overall, if you retain that core group for each school, then you get a more of a community feeling. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dahlia Mender.
My name is Dahlia Mendez, and I live at 15227 Faircrest Drive in the Meadow Creek subdivision. I'm going to explain where I grew up and why I chose College Station. I grew up in a typical border town in the Rio Grande Valley where disparity is everywhere. When I got accepted into A&M, I chose this area for the stability, for the traditions, and for the values. My dad worked in a government job, so I did not grow up as every minority student. I chose College Station. When my husband and I were choosing where to live, the debate was Bryan or College Station. I could have easily chosen Bryan. Easier living, more money to live off, but we chose College Station. We chose the southern part of College Station because we wanted a better school district. We wanted the southern part of College Station. When my youngest son was diagnosed with autism, my marriage fell apart because my husband couldn't handle a son with a disability. We have been rezoned 3 times because of where we live in Meadow Creek. We have been rezoned from Forest Ridge to Creekview to Greens Perry. To have a son with autism and not have stability in the school, and to tell him that we might be rezoned again is difficult. I am welcoming the rezoning to Wellborn Middle School because it is difficult as a single mom, as a minority, and to struggle to live in Meadow Creek, to be able to go to College Station High School and not to drive to College Station, to Consol, sorry. It is difficult to provide for my family as a single mom and a minority. I educated myself to provide for my kids. So right now, option 3 is the best for me and for my family. I quit the medical field to provide for my family and to provide for my son that has autism. He is in special ed at Pecan Trail. Because of that, I have to pay extra for him to be on off-campus PE because he wants to be in orchestra. He wants to play for Mr. Hopkins at College Station High School. How am I going to explain to him that we have been rezoned to Consol and that he's going to pass that high school every single day, and I'm going to have to explain that we are not zoned for that high school, even though he's going to see it, he's not going to comprehend that. Any additional hardship for me is a struggle. My kids are both actively involved. They're involved in Taekwondo. Both of them are in orchestra. The orchestra teachers at College Station advise private lessons. So as a single mother, I took their advice. I did the private lessons. Both of them in private lessons are actively involved. Not having a father, my church family has helped and be the fathers that they need. My son, who is in middle school right now, has lost many friends because of being rezoned, because of the school, of being in Meadow Creek. And I know, Meadow Creek has a lot of minorities, and I don't know if they showed up here, but there are minorities in Meadow Creek. And yes, I am a single parent, and I struggle to support my kids to live in that subdivision, to go to College Station High School. That's all they know. To be in the orchestra concerts, I quit the medical field. I chose Navasota High School because I wanted to work with kids with disparities. My kids are right now graduating at the College Station Medical School, and I'm missing their graduation to be here to fight for my own kids. If I get rezoned, I will have to quit Navasota and go back to the medical field to move to another subdivision or go back and get my master's. I don't want to have to choose my kids' education and a struggle to go to Consol and drive them. I don't want to have to tell my kids, I cannot afford for you to do extracurricular activities because you're going to Consol. That's an extra stress for me. I'm sorry, but option 3 is the best for me. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kim Jackson.
Good evening. My name is Kim Jackson, 5228 Canvasback in Saddle Creek. So when looking at these different options, the worst scenario would be to force large geographic areas of existing homes to switch high schools. With that in mind, the option 3 would be the best rezoning option for our city for a few reasons. That option improves comparability between the high schools by bringing the difference in the ED percentage down to 6.4% without adjusting the boundaries extremely far south. This particular option also allows a large area of projected future development to attend Consol, which really is key here. This is by far the best idea because it allows families who are building new homes to know in advance that they will be attending Consol. And this, of course, will help ease the overcrowding of College Station High School. It's much better to include areas of future development within the boundaries of Consol instead of switching vast areas of pre-existing homes to Consol. That way, homeowners will know of the switch before buying their home, instead of being forced to change after the fact. I would strongly urge the board to choose option 3 and to take a good look at where the future home developments will be around town and to include most of those in the new boundaries for Consol. And that will continually help the ED percentage for Consol So we won't have to be back here in another 2 years, hopefully. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Spiller. The next, Melissa Spiller.
Melissa Spiller, 1701 Creekside Circle. I have 3 children currently in the district, 2 in elementary and 1 going into high school this coming fall, currently in 8th grade at CSMS. I'm a medical office manager and my husband is self-employed. I volunteer weekly within the district. I'm a substitute teacher for College Station ISD, and I also volunteered my time on the College Station ISD Path to 25K Summit. So when I say that I strongly believe in the core beliefs and commitments established by College Station ISD, I really do. I'm here tonight representing my street, Creekside Circle. I was hoping there might be a map, but I don't see one. We're a small P right on the border of 2 of the plans. I'm requesting that my street stay zoned as is for College Station High School. There are 29 homes on my street. 18 of those homes currently have children enrolled in College Station ISD. One is a sophomore that would likely be grandfathered. One has 2 children and a grandfather waiver for dual language, and one of the houses, they're going to be moving this summer. 7 of the homes on my street are occupied by district employees. This data leaves only 8 homes that would be affected by the rezoning. So what this means is no matter which school we're zoned for, it will have little to no impact on the ED percent or the overall student enrollment numbers. I'm requesting that we continue to be zoned for College Station High School. For one, proximity. We're less than 1.5 miles from College Station High School, and the Cougar cross country and long distance track teams, they run on our sidewalks. But 2 of the plans have us rezoned for Consol. My street is mostly occupied by dual income middle class families. We chose to live where we are based on the things that we need around us, and one of those is a school. My husband works nights and I work full time. If I had to transport my child daily to school, it would be a hardship on us. She is in several things, athletics, National Junior Honor Society, extracurricular activities. We walk or bike. She has walked or biked to all 3 schools over the last 9 years that she's been at College Station ISD. Not on a daily basis. We also carpool. I cannot speak for the 7 employees that live on my street, but if they chose to send their students to the school closest to them on convenience and proximity alone, and we were zoned for Consol, it would split our tiny street. Some of the families chose to live out, and the ones that chose to live out did not do so for convenience. Being a dual income family, we chose to live in for convenience. Being able to maneuver jobs and children, we look for convenience to help us with that. The other thing that I would like to point out is our neighborhood. We're not Dove Crossing and we're not the Bird Streets. We're actually a small street located right in between the 2. And I'm just asking that you look at us separately. One of the proposals has phase 1 of our HOA in one school zone and phase 2 of our HOA in a different school zone. All of our homes were built in 2009 or later, and the values of them are higher. Hence, our school taxes are higher, and I'm just asking that you look at us differently from those other ones. I can only speak for my street, and that's what I'm here to do tonight. I just want to thank y'all. I hope that y'all select a proposal that already has us zoned for College Station High School. If you select a different plan, I'm asking that you look at the map a little bit closer and perhaps move the shaded area just a tiny bit, like the back fence of our neighborhood is the border, and so we could continue to be zoned for College Station High School. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Abby Gehrig.
Howdy. My name is Abby Gehrig, and I know most of you because exactly this month, 2 years ago, I was appointed to the Board of Adjustment, or the board that was going to rezone our community. I understand what y'all are looking for. I understand what you're doing, and I understand that people are going to tear you up and people are going to love you. The issue I have here is I'm a little bit upset with y'all that we're back here again today. I have 4 kids in the district. I have one that's a current 8th grader at College Station Middle School, and 2 of the 4 plans we are rezoned to a different high school. I have a 10-year-old who I expect, by the numbers on most of the plans presented, would be rezoned again before he started high school. I also have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I will literally be in the school district until 2033. I will long last all of you. My kids are currently on the charter list lottery system, not because I actually want to go to the charter school, but because I want my kids to have continuity. And I think that's what every single person in this room is looking for tonight. None of us, I don't even care if you rezone me. I just want to know where we're going. My daughter has no idea if she is purple or maroon. We've toured the school. We have the schedule. We don't even know which elite camp we'll be going to this summer. These are issues that are clear and present in my house. The other thing I'm concerned about is the data that you have to make the decisions before you. I have looked closely at all 4 plans, and I don't think you have enough information for anybody in this room to like one plan over the other. I've asked questions and I wondered details, many of which I've been told you'll be finding the information out on Wednesday. It makes it really hard for all of us to give you back feedback when we don't have enough information to even know what the plans hold. The reality is this is a big job, and you need to take it seriously, and you need to take enough time to make sure that when you do it this time, you do it right. You have to include areas that are going to grow into Consol. I've only lived here for 4 years. When we first moved here, I could drive down Greens Prairie Road, and it was field after field. Well, since I've moved here, Creek Meadows Estate, all of those things have flourished. I'll give you a little heads up. If you build a school, the developers are going to come. So if you look where you're building schools, there's going to be people that move to live close to those schools. It has happened in case after case, and it has happened every time y'all have built a school. It's not time for us anymore to say, well, we didn't know where the people are going to go. You know where the people are going to go, and you know that your schools are far away. Transportation is one of the major concerns in y'all's list of things to consider. I don't care if you live in Pebble Creek or Peach Creek, Indian Lakes, Saddle Creek. Kids riding a bus for over an hour to get to any school in this district is obscene. Your own vision is success. Each student, each day, each hour. Putting a child on a bus for 2 hours a day is not success on anyone's radar. You need to take this seriously. And if you're going to rezone the district, maybe you need to blow up the map and start at the beginning. Because what I'm looking at right now doesn't solve any problems. It just moves people from place to place that are going to get moved again in 2 more years. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Rusty Adams. And as a reminder, please state your name, address, and subdivision.
Can you hear me? My name is Rusty Adams. I live at 5215 Vintage Oaks, Saddle Creek subdivision. I rise to speak in favor, if we must rezone, in favor of option 3. I looked at the data sheets, and one of the things that jumped out at me was that numbers-wise, they're, I think, somewhat similar. But I think what you're seeing tonight is that this is more than a numbers game. We're dealing with real people here, and real kids, and real parents and families that are, not only are they affected by your decisions, but they've already made decisions based on what their expectations were going to be. We have 3 kids. By way of clarification, the older 2 are my stepchildren. When when we got married, one of the deciding factors in my coming to College Station was that we wanted to keep them in the schools where they were, with their friends, with their teachers, on that same track. They're in the purple track. I understand, and there's been a lot of talk recently about doing away with the tracks. And I understand that that's part of what's happening. But the fact is, College Station ISD created those tracks, and we moved and acted in reliance on those. We made decisions, and a lot of people in this room made decisions where they were going to buy houses, the biggest investment of their lives, most of us. They decided where they were going to live and where they were going to buy houses based on where their kids were going to be able to go to school. We were no exception. After we got married, we actually had our youngest, and we needed to move. Where are we going to move? Well, we need a house that we're going to be able to keep the older two in their schools, with their friends. I'm looking out through this room, and I see these families. I see the Garrigs and the Marlers, the Salmons, that our daughters are inseparable. And I understand that things change. But as I believe it was Amanda that said, I think it was very well put, this is a very sensitive age to change those type of things. Now, with that in mind, I support option 3 because I believe it would require the fewest number of people to move and the fewest number to travel long distances. However, I really want you to look at grandfathering middle schoolers, at least 8th graders. I think Amanda's points were very well taken. Is we acted in reliance on what the school district and this board or your predecessors had already put in place. We acted in reliance on that. And if we must change these boundaries, I would ask that you would grandfather in at least the current 8th graders so that we wouldn't have to uproot them from where they are. I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that's too much to ask. Especially when you look at the numbers. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Gene Phelps.
I'm a little bit shorter than Rusty. My name is Jean Phelps, and I live at 606 Castlebrook in the Williams Court subdivision. I think the theme for tonight is continuity. That's the one thing you keep hearing over and over again. And that's something that I think is important for all of us. My husband moved 15 times when he was growing up. I moved once in the middle of high school. Each was miserable in its own special way. And that was not something we wanted for our daughter. It's not something I want for any kid here. It's so important that these kids establish and maintain their relationships, not just with each other, but with teachers and other mentors in the school district. I'm encouraging you, no matter which option is chosen, that you do what we encourage all of our kids to do. Be kind and be generous. Be generous with your grandfathering. Be generous with your phasing in. Be generous with making exceptions to drawing boundaries. You know, we've got a lot of 8th graders who are already invested in their high school. Asking them to change now is a huge, huge bump in the road that they have for high school. You know, so many kids today, you see horrible things happening because they're disconnected from their school community, from the community at large. These kids are already developing communities. Don't pull them out now. Let them continue. You know, none of us are going to point the finger at you if this change happens over a number of years as opposed to all at once. It'll give people the opportunity to have some say in what's happening, to adjust to whatever changes have to happen, and let the kids adjust. I just really want to emphasize that continuity is so important. You don't hear anybody complaining about the schools themselves. The issues that we have is making sure our kids have that continuity from one school to the next. So I encourage you that if you're going to make these changes, take into account the new growth, as several people have mentioned, and take into account the fact that these kids are already on certain tracks, and be generous with that grandfathering and with phasing in. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brian Whitty. Forgive me if I say a name wrong.
All right, my name is Brian Whitty, 1726 Creekside Circle. Melissa Spiller, she was on my street, so she kind of covered a lot of stuff that I was going to say, but I will kind of hit a few things and emphasize a few more. Again, kind of like what people were saying, is that the schools themselves are not the issue. You know, this district is a great district as a whole. No matter which school you go to, you're going to get a good education. The kids are going to be fine as far as education. It has a lot to do with people having to, get out of their normal routines of, well, now our kids are split. We had friends here, now they're over here and over here, having to drive further. Say, for our example, we are, less than a mile away from College Station versus 3 miles away from Consol. That's it's just the differences that, people have to be adjusting to. And a lot of stuff that I've heard on my street, again, Melissa spoke about a lot of those, and I want to emphasize that we have over half our houses are teachers. They work in the district, and they have the option of, so that takes away, out of like the 30 kids on our street, there's only going to be 10 of them that actually this will affect. And so, again, you're off of our street alone, you're not going to be getting any kind of numbers out of it. But yet we're still considered part of the group that, if moved, we will be making a change in something. When in reality, our street is not going to make any difference on those numbers. And again, in the options, our street is right there on the edge. And so even though she said it jokingly, if you adjust it just to our back fence, that does make a difference when you're right there on that edge and you're right there on the border of, going to one school or the other. And especially, like I said, when she was mentioning about the kids on our street and how numbers wise, you're not really getting that many. And so, like I said, it was from what I've heard from people on our street, what I've heard from just talking to people outside of our street. It comes back to, they're not worried about the education. They know the education's there. It has nothing to do with, I feel like I got to go to the bright, shiny new school versus the older school. It's nothing to do with your education you're going to get. You're going to get a good education either way. It's just the factors of having to travel, making new arrangements of we moved to this house specifically for being close to schools where our kids can ride their bike or walk, or, ease of getting to places, versus now we're going to have to either use a bus system or we're going to have to drive them ourselves. And so I think that's where a lot of your issues are coming from, regardless of, which kind, and again, regardless of which plan you're going to go with, there are going to be changes made. People are going to have to adjust, and it will happen. And that's just it. People will come to terms with it, but at the same time, people just want to be able to have a little bit that ease factor of, going with what's best for them and their family, and hope that all these considerations are taken, into account, instead of just, thanks, but here we go. We're just going to go with throwing a dart at the table. Here, we're going to go with this one. We do appreciate y'all listening to us and hearing our concerns. So we do actually, try to make the best decision for our town as a whole and for the kids as well. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Next speaker is Eve Franklin.
Hi, I'm Eve Franklin. I live on 1531 Strasburg Circle in Shenandoah, and several people said things that I agree with. I want to say at the beginning, though, I'm against option 3. I have to say at the beginning in case I forget, but I'm sure there are some larger areas that are being considered, but Shenandoah is being chopped up, and we are within walking distance to College Station High School. I wasn't at the last meeting, but I saw that, we're looking at a difference of 100 students which we're estimating a difference. And what the gentleman said about maybe we could just table this for a while, to me sounds like a great idea. I don't know if that's an option or not. But, I mean, it is true. We're changing every year, and we're only estimating. And to have College Station High School over by 120 students over capacity, is that really a big deal? And honestly, what we're really upset about here is the discontinuity with the kids, breaking up neighborhoods. Our kids that have been rezoned, I have friends that kids have been rezoned countless times in their, schooling. For me, specifically though, that's a general speaking for us in our home. We have had to ride the bus to go to middle school to intermediate. I know that the College Station ISD transportation system is overburdened. You don't have enough buses. You have to share buses. My kids were late to school multiple times. Countless times, probably every day, most of the time when they were at intermediate school or middle school. So what you're proposing here, chopping up Shenandoah subdivision and other places that are within walking distance, you're taking these people who can get to school of their own reconnaissance, and you are suddenly making them ride the bus. You don't have room to put these people on a bus. So I'm against option 3. For whatever reason, these people were out here in their larger subdivisions. I understand that. But y'all got to look at Shenandoah and our, Riata Meadows and the other little neighborhoods that are within walking distance. They must stay at College Station High School. It's not going to make that big of a difference in the zoning. I mean, our neighborhood is old. We've been in our house for 22 years. I think there are a lot of people, I know a lot of neighbors that don't even have kids. So we're kind of like those areas around College Station, the Consol, who, people have sent their kids to school, stayed in their house, and they don't have any more kids. I think Shenandoah has a lot of families like that. We have retired people that live there, people that don't even have kids. So you're going to, one of the options, I think it's option 3, chop off the back heart of Shenandoah, and you got to bring a bus in there from all these other places just to pick up I don't know how many kids. So anyway, I just ask that you look at that closely, because breaking up our neighborhood, personally, we rezoned when my kids were, we've been rezoned a couple times, but rezoned when my kids were in elementary, and it broke up friendships. I mean, there were people that we saw all the time, and all of a sudden we didn't see them anymore. And this is a neighborhood. It's a neighborhood. And we'd like to keep our neighborhood school with the kids that are living nearby. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Next speaker is Nate Sharp.
Hi, I'm Nate Sharp, and my address is 17312 Macaulay Court in Indian Lakes. I appreciate the chance to say a few things tonight. I think what we're all hearing tonight is that no one wants to move schools. Everybody's happy where they are, at least of the people who have spoken up. But the reality is some of us are going to have to move. If we're not debating your FC local policy about the capacity of the high schools, if that's not up for debate, then someone's going to have to move. So what I would ask you to do is take a step back and think about a couple of what I think are very common sense principles when it comes to rezoning. The first one is that if there's the option to rezone in a way that minimizes the disruption of current students and the schools they currently attend, then minimizing disruption should be a very high priority. The easiest way to accomplish that is to begin focusing on zoning new developments toward the schools that are under capacity, as opposed to rezoning current developments that already have children that are connected to schools and have relationships there. For example, the new high-density development on Greens Prairie Road, the Margraves Ranch development that has been spoken about tonight, is going to have a very high-density housing area, a lot of people moving in. No one's there yet. They're not going to be moved somewhere new. They would be zoned to the area that needs a greater inflow of students. So I ask you to please focus on minimizing the disruption to current students. The other principle to take a step back and think about is just transportation times and costs. I recognize that the people who live in the middle of the district, relatively close to College Station High School, don't want to be zoned away from College Station High School, but the reality is they also live close to A&M Consolidated High School. Those two schools are less than 3 miles apart. The developments in the far south part of College Station High School's boundaries are very low density developments. The houses are far apart, there aren't a lot of kids, and the cost to send buses to those developments and bus them all the way across the district are much higher than the cost to bus students from the middle of the district to A&M Consolidated. That's to say nothing of the times involved. We have 4 children who will be on 4 different CSISD campuses this fall and 4 campuses next fall. My kindergartner walks out the door at 6:35 in the morning right now to take a bus to Forest Ridge. When I think about you asking these neighborhoods in the far south part of College Station to be bused all the way north to A&M Consolidated, it just doesn't make sense. It's not common sense. So please consider minimizing disruptions, minimizing transportation times on buses and costs to the district. And I would also add my voice in support of grandfathering current 8th graders. You can't say it better than Amanda and Abby said it, so I won't try. But it's very important to us as well that current 8th graders are allowed to grandfather. Thank you very much.
Jody Ford.
My name is Jody Ford. I live at 1216 Portsmouth Court in College Station. I'm in the newer part of Shenandoah. First of all, I would like to echo those who have said, I know that y'all have a hard task in front of you from the standpoint of deciding what's best for our district. I've been involved in the district. We have 2 children, one an 8th grader at CSMS and one 5th grader at Cypress Grove. And before I begin, I don't have a dog in this hunt because where we live off of Alexandria is in the newish part of Shenandoah. And so therefore, even some of these that move some of the eastern part of Shenandoah to a different school, we don't have that. I come to you because from the heart of a parent who's seen the impacts of student mobility. I have 2 younger brothers, both of whom dropped out and never finished high school, in my opinion, because of the mobility factors and changing schools from a small district out in West Texas to a much larger district, and then another brother who was in 3 different high schools in the span of his career. And so I can't say it any better than Amanda did, that I would request that the 8th graders be grandfathered because if you look, study after study that talks about mobility and the impacts of moving children from school to school, whether you're a military child or within districts, you have those impacts. And so it doesn't make sense to start a student who's going to be a freshman in fall of 18 a year later to move them to a different high school because they've got the friendships that are developed. In fact, I haven't even broken the news to my daughter, who has the potential of losing one of her best friends, not losing, but moving to a different high school because of of this impact on numerous of these scenarios. And so I would just, again, I don't have a dog in this hunt because I'm not impacted by it, but I would, again, ask you to consider grandfathering the 8th graders in this regard. Thank you.
Yi Sheng Chia?
Go evening. This is Yi Chen Xie from the 1007 Amordorf in the Dorf Crossing subdivision. So for here, I would like to thank you, all the board members, to have all the hard work, put all the slides, all the things. And I understand that everybody here is really care about their kids' future and also the education. So for here, then I listened to the slide, listened to the presentation several times, and come up with, okay, the board is really care about three factors. First one is SES or EDA, and then capacity. And the third one is the one you care the less, is the biking and walking distance. So first one, the EDA, totally agree. No opposed to, because that is very important to give other people a chance to have a better education. So I'm totally agree with that. But how about the capacity of the high school? Like we have heard that so many previous neighborhood, they mentioned about the developing plant here in College Station. Here I would like to talk about one thought, is that whenever this development plan come out, because we did not pay too much attention to, and therefore cause this kind of situation now. And that really affect our kids or our future of the kids. So we should pay more attention to this city development plan, the rezoning, all the things, because they will really change our kids, the school attendance map. So for here, I would like to know, because I prefer to have optional one, because my kids, we are in the Dorf Crossing, walking distance 1 mile away, like Shenandoah, even closer somehow. It depends where you live in. So, and I'm coming to support our neighborhood, although my kids is not there yet. But, I also make the slide, because if you plug in the number, the one in the slide, to see the optional 1, 2A, and 3, no matter how, soon we should have the high school 3 in consideration, because we will exceed more than 100% capacity after 2022. So then we should really care about more of the population and also new development soon. Yeah. So again, I would like to here to support our neighborhood regarding the walking distance, because we are so close to the College Station High School. If you are doing a biking, it's less than 5 minutes. Driving 5 minutes. And then if you're going to consolidate, it's 10 minutes. Although I know that compared to other areas, it's relatively closer. But if the kids can walk home, really, for us, it's a relief, because we don't have so many hands to handle that. And I understand different families have different concerns. But our standing is that we really want to have optional 1, because this option preserves the option for the walking distance conveniences. And also, compared to the EDA rate, this optional 1 is the one with the lowest ratio, with almost the best the capacity compared to the consolidated high school, if you look closely. But again, I would like to thank you all, everybody, all the board members, to put everything here. And I would really, really help you to put all these three factors in consideration. And we really like to, if possible, we like to stay in the school, in the area, then our kids can walk to the school. Because we live in the area, the reason we built our house in 2011, because that is right next to Creekview, because that is right next to the Cypress Grove, and it's very close to high school. Thank you.
Gerard Toussaint.
My name is Gerard Toussaint. I live at 3000 Arapahoe Ridge in Indian Lakes. I'm the parent of 3 children at CSISD and 2 at Allen Academy. And tonight I have one request for the board. I would like you to remember the title trustee. And viewing community sentiment from my end of town, there's a trust deficit that could easily be improved with a few changes in processes. First, I think taxpayers and parents need to know how you define success, each life, each day, and each hour. Is this measured based on National Merit Scholars, SAT scores, college acceptance rates, number of artists presented at shows, tax test scores, graduate feedback data, successful integration into society, number of detentions, number of expulsions, job placements, fewer arrests, or other criteria? The reason I ask is because I've witnessed board deliberations in person over the past few years and in the local media for over a decade. I have never seen the board examine past decisions as to their effects on outcome data. Do you keep outcome data as they relate to your decisions? You should. Specifically, A, the public would like to see how your recent balancing of free school lunch recipients affected metrics of student success. B, would it not be important to study the success measurements of students for whom you have chosen longer bus rides and deprived them of 30 minutes of sleep? C, what have prior disruptions in a family's continuity with one set of schools done to the likelihood of parent volunteerism? How has this affected the performance of the child and the access of the other children at that school to the volunteer work hours of those parents? D, there is one set of parents with free selection of any school in the district based on what I think might be a misguided employment perk. The data where CSISD teachers send their own children should tell the board whether all schools are offering the same success each life, each day, and each hour. Second, there's been too much disheartening discussion around school boundary adjustments. Realtors, developers, parents, coaches, athletic program backers, PTAs, book clubs, and neighborhoods have had too much power and too little power in getting their way. This leads to resentment, distrust, political upheaval, and ends with a difference attendance zone map every 2 years. This cannot be healthy for learning. The alternative trustworthy approach would include a change in processes. Trustees who are known personal friends of or whose campaigns have received significant financial support from any real estate agent or developer with a financial interest in the outcome of school rezoning should recuse her or himself from the rezoning voting. Other conflicts of interest should be defined carefully and kept rigorously public. The most democratic school assignment method is completely random. The board could consider assigning a family to a set of schools randomly, but keeping that assignment regardless of movement within the district, fostering parent-student school continuity. Busing is the major drawback here, but the board has not been averse to busing in other proposals. And finally, a better method would be to hire a remote, outside, unaffiliated firm of demographers to offer options for rezoning to the board in a completely blinded fashion. The plans could be ranked as to their bus route lengths, school composition data, continuity scores for families already in the district, likelihood to be stably maintained for years in spite of community growth, resource utilization scores, and even more metrics. The plans could be presented without any attached maps so that neither the board nor the administration or any parent or any member of the public could know knowledge of the zones beforehand. Then each plan could be truly judged on the criteria that the board feels are correlated with its success. Unveiling the plan would come after, but not before, the votes. That's the fairest way to proceed.
David Gomillion. David, there he is.
Howdy, I'm David Gomillion. I live at 911 Emerald Dove in the Dove Crossing subdivision. We've heard a couple times about walkability, bikeability in core areas. I just want to add my voice to that. That's really important to us. We chose a house that is centered inside of a neighborhood that is surrounded on all sides by schools, including the new charter school being built. We are literally surrounded by schools. walkability is really important to us because the fact that my son can get himself to high school helps him participate in Science Olympiad, chess club, band, choir, and all the other extracurriculars, as well as to do extra tutoring and whatever else he needs to do. The school really is central to their learning right now, and so having a core area for each school close to the school makes a lot of sense. So elementary schools draw a 1 mile radius around it. If you live within a mile, you go to that elementary school. Same with intermediate, because younger kids have shorter legs. Look at middle school and high school. Draw a 2 mile ring around it. That's how far they can walk or bike realistically and reasonably. Help them learn the habits now that will help delay Alzheimer's and other cognitive problems. That's what happens when we take the car first. I teach at a nameless university here at the other side of town, and I had students 35 minutes late to class because they didn't walk the 10 minutes from the MSC to my classroom. They waited 45 minutes for a bus because that's the way they think. Vehicle first, vehicle first. I'm waiting for a ride, vehicle first. It's not even that hot yet. So, the whole idea of, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be snarky, but honestly, we need to help encourage them to learn to walk, to ride their bicycles, to exercise. That's what gives them the long-term health. So we don't want our kids to lose extracurricular activities, which is realistically what happens because nobody can afford to run a bus after chess club. No one can afford to run a bus after Science Olympiad and every single little extracurricular that happens. When they can bike and walk, they get to participate. When they can't, they have to choose because we have to choose. It was brought up that the high schools are 3 miles apart, 3.1, but they're pretty close. So those who chose to live pretty far out have chosen to ride a bus. They're going to have to ride a bus, and 3 miles in town on the highway is 3 minutes. Please don't make us have our children ride a bus when they could walk. It's 3 minutes for them. It's an extra half hour for us. And that's really all I had to say. Thank you very much for all the consideration you're giving. I know it's a tricky situation. There are a lot of arguments on both sides, but please form a core area around each school. Help build that community. Help people stay connected. That's what makes schools great. Thank you.
It's either Noel or Noel Gamillion.
I'm Noelle Gamillion. I live at 911 Emerald Dove Avenue in Dove Crossing. We live 7 minutes by bike from College Station High School. We just recently bought our house last March after scouring various neighborhoods and seeing all the different neighborhoods, what they had to offer. Our neighborhood, Dove Crossing, we don't have fountains, we don't have a pool, we don't have green belts, we don't even have a park for our kids to play at. We have 4 schools in walking distance, and that is our competitive advantage of our neighborhood. It's what attracts families to our neighborhood. When we moved in, our neighbors around us breathed a sigh of relief because they'd heard that we were going to be college students moving in. There's a pressure because we're also close to the university on our neighborhood that every time a house goes up for rent, every time it goes up for sale, people wonder who's going to buy it. Is it going to be a family? And when 2 streets over, if people can live within walking distance of all 4 schools, why will families move into our neighborhood? We still have some areas that are growing, but we're pretty well landlocked, and we would like to continue to attract families into our area. What we love about where we live is, and why we chose, I don't like the house we bought, I don't like lots of things, but I looked down the street and we saw the elementary school. And then we pulled up a map and we saw right across from it was the intermediate school. A mile down the way was the middle school. A mile the other way was the high school. And when we saw that, we said, this represents time together as a family because our kids won't have to spend all day on a bus. We won't have to spend all day dropping them off and picking them up. We can let them walk to school. We can let them be independent. We can have physical activity built into their lives to where they'll be healthier and to where they have the freedom to decide if they want to go before school activities or after school activities, and they won't be dependent on us and our schedule and their siblings' schedules. And honestly, that's the reason most of our neighbors moved into Dove Crossing. And I loved in the fall when we first started walking our kids to elementary school, we got to hear the College Station Marching Band playing their music as they were practicing before school. And we turned to our 8th grader who plays trombone, and we said, that'll be you next year. And we turned to our flute player who's 6th grader, and we said, that'll be you. This is so exciting that we get to hear you play in the mornings as we walk your siblings to school. This is so cool. That high school, it is the high school. When we discuss this when we talk to our neighbors about it, they'd all point and say, but it's right there. It's the high school. It's not College Station High School. It's the high school. We walk past it when we're out having rambles as a family. We listen to it as we're walking our kids to school in the morning. We see it. It's part of our community. We go to concerts there for our children. And honestly, next fall, if I listen to the marching band music every day, it'll just be a sad reminder that what we moved into our neighborhood for is no longer achievable for us, that our children would not be allowed to go to the school that we moved into that neighborhood to allow them to walk to. That is an easy walking distance. And I do feel bad for all of those who live so far out that they have to be bussed in and that the buses are so crowded and that it takes so long. But expanding the number of neighborhoods that need to be bussed in College Station ISD is not going to fix that problem. It will make it worse. Thank you very much.
For those standing in the back, there are some seats available up front if you're interested. Just making the offer so it won't be quite as awkward if you do decide to do it. Okay, next speaker, Kimberly McAdams.
Hi, everybody. Kimberly McAdams, 1112 Finney, which is in the Foxfire subdivision. First, a thank you both to the administration and the board. I know it's a lot of mental stress and also a lot of time from you guys, so thank you. Second, I want to say I appreciate the changes you're trying to make with the process. I appreciate FC Local and also doing this out in the open. And I think it's a positive for the community. Maybe a little more time for you guys, but I think it's good. I'm not going to say which one of the options, is best for me or my family, my kids, or my house, value. But I will say I do think you guys are looking at the right parameters. A lot of people have mentioned the different parameters. I kind of think you've talked about 5 that you're looking at. Obviously, the comparability, which I certainly believe in. I think it's the right thing for our community. But also the capacity. You are the stewards of our money, so thank you for being smart with that. I think the walkability and a lot of what we've heard about that makes sense as well. So I think it's good that you're looking at that. And I also see you've talked about a little bit before how this may impact the middle school splits. I think that's something you need to keep on your radar, and I think you are, so that's good. But then also the other biggie is kind of making this long lasting, being smart enough to do something that is going to endure. So many people don't have to deal with zoning as many times as some folks have. But on the other hand, I also know, for most of these people here, this community has grown like crazy in the last 10 years, doubled the number of students. There will have to be rezoning. So I appreciate you trying to make it as painless as possible. So I'm not voting on one, but I do want to offer, I do like hearing people's perspectives. I think it's great that you guys do, and I have kind of 2 pieces of my perspective. One is for intermediate, middle, and high school, we go to schools that are farther away than the 3 that are closest to us. We've done that for, since 5th grade. I actually had to go look it up to make sure because I don't even think about it. It's not that much farther. By the time you get in a car and drive or by the time your kid gets on a bus, if they're doing one of those 2 things already, which we have to, then it's not that much farther to go a little bit to a different school. So, and I really think it's not that big of a deal. My kid from high school gets home off the bus, walks in the door before 4:15. And there's a high school that's closer than the one she goes to. I love our schools. I actually think, we got rezoned. This is my other part of the perspective. We got rezoned in elementary school. Would we have asked for it? No. Was it good for my family? And actually, I think very much so, yes. I think my daughter had to learn to make new friends, and she did, and it's been great for her. And I also really believe it was better for our school and our community. We took a school that was at 70% low SES and dropped it to the low 40s. Lots more. It was good for the school. And I've been so happy with all my schools so far in CSISD, and I love being involved with them and supporting them. And I guess I'll close with, I know you guys have a tough decision. Thank you for taking the time to look at all of the pieces of it and do what's right for the over 13,000 students in this community, because that's who you're looking out for, all of them, 13,000 plus, and the impact that it has on our whole community as a whole. Thank you.
Mr. President, can we take like 7 minutes?
We can. We have more cards over there. We have three
okay,
more.
That's fine.
I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable.
No, we're good. We
Okay.
got 3 more.
Okay. Next speaker. Wow. Matt Turnlow.
Howdy. Matt Turnbow. I live at 5120 Drake Drive in Duck Haven, South College Station. I was hoping y'all didn't call me up here. The time expired, so I didn't have to speak. I jotted some notes when I heard how well everybody else was speaking. So I want to start this by saying I don't have any fountains or pools in my neighborhood. All I have is a pond that's stagnant. Lots of mosquitoes in Duck Haven. So just to kind of level the playing field there. So, the one thing I've heard from everybody, any side of this, is they talk about continuity. And you think about all the changes and everything that's gone on. And it's easy to say, well, that's just part of life and you just deal with it. But when you look at the populations and the changes that have happened, you can kind of look at it and say, boy, could some of this have been avoided? So if you look at right now the numbers, so a big problem is Consol doesn't have enough as far as their capacity. The new high school has too many. Well, how did that happen? We just built the thing. So maybe we misfigured a little bit on where to put the high school or the size. But either way, today, we can't do anything about the past, right? So today, and I'm an Aggie, so my math is bad. If we're 85% populated at Consol, underpopulated, we're at 110 at College Station High School. If I take my shoes off and do some math, that's 5% capacity right now. No matter what you dream up or how you hack up a map or students, right? So you look at it and say, not only am I here, I'm going to have to be here a lot more times probably over the next couple of years because both these schools are going to be over capacity. So I like the idea about shelving it. I think it's ludicrous let me get both sides of this. I think it's ludicrous for walkers that are in Shenandoah that can see the school. I think it's pretty strange to be bused over there. But you can kind of look at where they placed the high school and blame it on that as much as anything, as close in as it is. But I think it's ludicrous. What I think is more ludicrous, I live on the last street on Welborn Road South of College Station ISD. If I go a street further, I'm in Navasota. My wife was telling me that we were going to get rezoned, and I told her I thought she was nuts. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So, using some common sense, maybe it's shelved, and maybe we look at a ninth grade center, start another school, use it as a ninth grade center. But either way, that's where I'm at on that. So geography, so one other thing about continuity and growing up in a community with other students and making friends, and all of us can relate when we went to school. So now my daughter that has been rezoned to some schools that are built, the people she's making friends with, and I'm driving over to these birthday parties in these neighborhoods, which everybody has to do. Did you know it's an 80-20 split as far as 80% of those kids she's friends with, they're going to College Station High School. 20% Consol. I mean, that's nuts. I've never heard of anything like that before. So I wanted to make point of that. I fully agree on the grandfathering. That also would be crazy. And so then I have to do this to close. I'm missing my daughter's T-ball game right now to be here. So my wife and daughter wanted me to make the point. They want their school color to be purple. It's important to them. So if y'all would think about that, just try and help them out with the color. So appreciate it.
Cynthia Hipwell. That's okay.
Cynthia Hipwell, 3725 Kaliska Court, Indian Lakes. We're actually new to the whole College Station community, and came from a place that we were a long time. It's difficult to move teens and preteens, and I'm not going to complain about that to all these people who have gone through something that I find kind of shocking, truthfully. I've come from a place where 2 elementary schools feed into a middle school, 2 middle schools feed into a high school, and continuity and friendships and community are really valued. The thing that I guess I'm concerned about in looking at, I've looked at online the information presented in the previous meetings to see how many times this has happened to the community, and I didn't see any discussion about what happened last time. Why were the projections wrong? This was only done 2 years ago. Did we do something different this time that will make this a permanent solution? I think all people are asking for, from what I've seen in the community, both schools are good, all the schools are good. People are asking for a permanent solution. I think the point the man just made about there's only 5% slop either way, you're going to have something over capacity. You can't get it that equal in the modeling. So I would advocate for studying some communities that have grown quickly. I've seen communities that have grown quickly. They've rezoned once, and that's when they did their high schools. Figure out why the projections were wrong before, make changes to the model, and do something that will be a permanent solution that will bring some stability for people. The other thing that I do want to advocate for is on the busing. My children leave for school an hour and 20 minutes before school starts. They're on a bus with 5th graders to 12th graders, and the bus goes to 3 schools. I think, one, that's kind of a recipe for bullying, but also I can't imagine how much longer, what time they're going to have to get on the bus to go even further. So I think any of these, if you're going to commit to any of these plans, the school board needs to commit the bus driver resources and the buses, which it actually might be cheaper to buy trailers or to rent trailers for the high school, but to be able to give people direct, especially on the long routes, direct rides to school so that they are not on the bus for 3 hours a day. My kids are already on the bus for 2 hours and 15 minutes a day. So I would ask there be a commitment, if you're really going to be busing, commitment to the resources that give students a reasonable ride. I would like stability for my students just like anyone else. I'm not going to advocate for any plan because I actually don't want to advocate against anyone else. I think everyone deserves stability. And so I think myself, and it sounds like other people here, would be willing to support something that had enough data, had enough information to be able to be a long-term plan. I'll go to either school as long as I know my kids can be in it for the rest of the time.
We have 2 more cards over there and 1 here. We still good? Is there anybody else that wants to submit a card? How about now? We still good? Okay. 3 plus 4. I have 3 total.
Are there more cards out there that have not been turned in? People who plan to speak.
Okay. Chloe Marler. Did I say it right?
Hello, my name is Chloe Marler. I am in 7th grade at College Station Middle School, and my address is 15617 Long Creek Lane in the Estates of Creek Meadows. I haven't looked at the plans or data sheets, but I feel like you should hear it from someone who's being affected directly by the rezoning. I tried riding on a bus, but I had bad experiences, and I don't want to ride a bus for hours a day. When I start driving in 4 years, I feel like driving on a highway is not safe for us on the other side of College Station. I look forward to driving like most kids my age, and I feel like this should not be taken away by the fear of driving across town in lots of traffic as someone who is going to be new to driving. One other point I would like to make is my friendships. My neighborhood is not being affected, but so many of my friends are. 2 of my best friends live in River Place, and I would not be able to go to school with them if y'all chose a plan in which they would get moved. We would lose hold of the memories of sports and classes together, and it would be so sad to not be able to look forward to things like homecoming and prom. We've already started looking for our dresses. Please consider this. Thank you for your time.
Trudy Bennett.
Hello. First and foremost, thank you to everyone for what you do. I know it's not an easy task, and I actually served on the Boundary Adjustment Committee with some of you guys 2 years ago, so I know what you're up against. So thank you for all of the effort and the time that you're putting into this. And actually, let me back up and tell you, so I'm at 18041 Latigo Court in Saddle Creek. And really the reason that I'm here is I have an 8th grade son who is going into 9th grade. And he's an incoming freshman, and he has looked forward to the day that he will attend CSHS. For years, he has prepared for high school, and it seems extremely senseless to have this taken away from him and other 8th graders, as Amanda, Rusty, and Abby and others have discussed. We have lived in Saddle Creek since 2009, living in 2 different homes. We purchased our first home, and then we built our second home. And we did this for the simple reason, proximity of schools, as well as the consistency of remaining on one trajectory, and that was going to CSHS. Our 2 children have attended schools that would feed into College Station High School, and for this reason, they have attended all of the summer sports camps that are related to CSHS, and they have established relationships with friends, coaches, and their teachers. Going back to Hayden, our freshman son, we have spent countless hours preparing him for next year. This includes meeting with the counselors and preparation of his plan that will prepare him for college. So we have sat down and we have gone through every scenario possible so that over the next 4 years, he'll have the best path forward. He is just one of hundreds of 9th graders that has prepared his plan at College Station High School. In looking at the plans, what would be best that we feel for Saddle Creek is option 3. Although I know that this isn't the best option for everyone, where we are, that's going to be the best. Option 3 seems to be the best, as transportation would remain at a minimum, or the transportation costs would remain at a minimum. Future growth areas are included in this option, so this would provide ample growth for both schools. Option 3 would also keep the South College Station areas together, as many of the kids of Saddle Creek, Indian Lakes, and Nantucket have established relationships. Of particular note that I do want to point out is the fact that future developments are being considered in this plan. And this is where the children will be attending school, as opposed to disrupting hundreds of kids who are already at the different schools, such as new developments. We don't know where the kids don't know where they would be going to school, whereas where we are living, they will know that they're supposed to go to CSHS. Please also be aware and keep in mind that we should take into account the account that these kiddos will be at a severe disadvantage if they are moved and the most logical solution is not considered. These kids have formed bonds and teams with the kids they have been going to school with for the past 8 years. Surely there is a more logical way that would provide less disruption to these kids. Again, thank you for your time and all that you do.
That's the one you're waiting for, Dr. Wesson. Cheryl Wink.
Okay, Cheryl Wink, it's 8703 Chippendale in Emerald Forest. And so 3rd time's the charm. This is the 3rd time that I've spoke about a rezoning issue. And so I just want to thank you all for providing this opportunity. And I think that you're really trying to solve this problem to where it's fair for everybody. Obviously, changes need to be made. I hope you can hear me okay. For many reasons, but capacity is the primary reason. I know it was mentioned. I really don't think any of these scenarios are great because they all kind of expire in 2 years. We're at capacity again in College Station High School. And so, but if I was going to pick one, I would pick scenario 1, and I would redraw the line at North or South Dowling and move it to where what is currently yellow, I believe, would now be blue, to where more students would be going to Consol and not going to College Station High School. So that's what I would do if I was going to pick a scenario, but I do think they need to be adjusted to where we have 4 years, and this rezoning debacle won't happen for another 4 years instead of 2 years. With that being said, I was very much involved in the rezoning of 2010 when all of this whole, this is the school to go to, the shiny and new versus that's the old maroon sad schools. And this created this whole problem. We were promised in 2010 this new area and this new subdivision south of Pebble Creek. That never came to fruition. And I don't think you can assume development will happen. Developers will develop, but they don't buy the houses. We do. So anyway, that said, I'm going to go to transportation and say that we mostly are all of means in this room here tonight. We were able to get here at 5:30 to come speak, and probably some of you got here at 5. But we get our kids. I truck my daughter north and south. I can't tell you how many miles I put on my car so she can go to this lesson and that lesson and this lesson and that lesson. So we will transport our kids. However, we will get them to wherever. I don't think transportation is an issue so much. And I know the district can solve and tweak to where we have Highway 6 is a great north-south commuter, and so is Wellborn, which is now going to be hopefully a loop around College Station and Bryan, and that's a great north-south transport too. So talking about grandfathering, I want to say a little bit about grandfathering. Last year in the second rezoning of 2016, very sneakily I found out from a teacher that fine arts were grandfathered in. And I was like, what? When did fine arts get grandfathered in? So if your daughter was in 5th grade in orchestra and 6th grade in band, and whoever was in band and orchestra, you're all grandfathered in. And I'm like, what? So here we are. I'm just going to tell you, when we go to competitions in band, it is pathetic to see the CHS bands and the AMCHS bands compete. I am sad. We have a whole slew of other kids that are quitting. It's a multitude of problems that started with the rezoning in 2010, and we are going to have a little bitty band marching on the field in high school next year, and that is going to be sad. I'm just telling you that right now. I'm very emphatic about this. But my other daughter was head drum major at Consol, and to see how the band program has fallen apart due to rezoning. Let's see, and I know this is happening in orchestra, and I know it's happening in choir, which is why the lady spoke about her son or daughter, I can't remember what it was, who wanted to be in orchestra, because, the fine arts programs are so much better at the new high schools. So anyway, I'm just going to say grandfathering does hurt kids. It hurts our programs, and it's not equal. And I really believe that our education in the two schools are not equal, too. That's a whole other can of worms. So I'm just going to close by saying that I truly believe this go around that you guys want to do the right thing. That's where my heart is. And I am counting on that this will be fixed to where our schools will be equal for our kiddos. That's what we want. Even when my daughter graduates, the kids that come up need to be treated equally. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, no more cards? With that, we are adjourned.